So welcome to our channel. I'm Brittany and this is Daniel. We are here today interviewing Stephanie Gossard and Everett Gossard. Hello everyone. Hi guys. So we met you guys through church. Before we started attending our current church, Daniel talked to our pastor about our family struggle to attend together and how we wanted to try again. And pastor hooked us up with you, Stephanie, gave us your phone number, and we were able to talk some things through with you and go over a spiritual IEP to figure out what Macy would need, what support she would need to attend Sunday school. So you are a wife, a mother, a leader in our local church, a teacher. So Stephanie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself in general?
I am the Able Ministry content manager. So Able Ministry is the National Disability Ministry for UPCI, and we work with churches and individuals to support families and individuals with disability. Yet at New Life, like locally here in St. Louis, I attend New Life St. Louis, and I was Macy's Sunday school teacher for quite a while.
So before we jump into all of the details, I have a couple warm-up questions to let the viewers get to know you a little bit. And Everett, you can answer as well if you would like. The first question is, when you're having a bad day, what do you do to make yourself feel better?
For me, it involves something crunchy. So my favorite crunchy snack right now has always been Ruffles potato chips. Sometimes with dip, sometimes without. So, and you are not a crunchy guy. You are.
I had an episode this morning actually, and all I could think to get away from this intense frustration I was experiencing was, I just need to go for a run.
You're a runner.
Much more healthy.
Much longer story than that. Not really a runner, but of late I've been doing a little running. So.
Question number 2. If you could have an unlimited supply of any one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I think that would be C question number 1.
Yeah, Ruffles.
There's just something about really crunchy snacks that does it for me. So I would say Ruffles potato chips for sure. All
right. Everett, do you want to answer that question?
There are a lot of things that I like to eat, so I'd be hard pressed to pick one, but put me in close proximity to a good bakery that has good croissants.
Same.
And you won't went to food on those things. It was an unlimited supply of anything, and both of you went to food. I like it.
Question number 3. What is something that everyone else seems to love that you don't understand?
Pumpkin pie.
I love pumpkin pie. That would not be mine. For me, it would be coffee. I just don't understand it. Right? I know. He loves coffee.
I don't drink coffee ever.
Is very fancy about coffee, but yeah, no. I did a Bible study at Starbucks for a few months, and so I went to Starbucks once a week and got tea.
There's a lot of good options there besides coffee.
Yeah, so I have like nice warm memories about Starbucks, but I don't do coffee at all.
Okay, so would you tell us a little bit about your experience of being a mother to a teenager with autism?
Yes. So I think like any mother of a teenager, right? I face a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Testosterone is not fun. My sister has 3 girls, and I hear estrogen is not fun either. So, yes. Outside of that, our child, as you mentioned, has autism. He has noise sensitivity, which not everyone with autism does. So if you think about an apostolic Pentecostal church service and the noise that involves, he gets overwhelmed very quickly. And so we have had to leave the sanctuary often with him. And so most of his 15-year-old life has been spent in the nursery, in the Sunday school room, kind of watching service through a window or a screen, or and I just said to Everett on last weekend, I was like, the pandemic, like, this is normal for us to sit in front of a screen and watch television or watch
church on the television. Yeah.
On church on a screen.
Yeah, so it's very common for us just to sit and watch church via a monitor.
Mm-hmm.
So the pandemic really, it's been kind of normal for our family. I mean, Timothy just sits beside us and acts like he does when we're at church. So
also, you dove into this just a little bit, but could you tell us about your experience trying to attend church as a family that functions a little bit differently than others?
Yep. Yeah. So it was harder when Timothy was little. So I would say, being a mom of a teenager is a blessing, really, because when he was little, it was very difficult. So Everett was involved in a lot of ministry on the platform, and he played the piano, so he was always up front doing stuff during church. And so I was in the nursery a lot with Timothy. And eventually we just hired somebody to come and take him so that I could go to church. Nice. And she was fantastic. It was a really kind of a dark time in my life, and she would show up, help me get him ready for church, drive with us to church for 30 minutes. We'd chat, and she was actually a special needs mom herself. And then she would take him for the entire service. She'd take him to Sunday school, she'd take him to the nursery if he needed to, and then ride home with us. And so that was an amazing blessing. So she kind of was our one-on-one for him for a number of years. Not every family can do that. Not every family can afford that. Some churches actually pay people to come in if they have a person with special needs that requires a lot of help, like a professional to help. The church will pay for somebody to come. In Minnesota, which is where we were at the time, they have state-sponsored financial assistance that parents can pay for and get subsidized support. And so it was kind of like respite care. She fell into that category.
And so the whole family could still travel to church. Your child's not staying home while you leave for church. So you have that feeling of being together.
Yeah.
When you're talking about Timothy growing up, what other strategies besides that one did you try maybe that other people are trying because they don't know of that option yet or haven't thought of that option? What other, it can be a success or a failure. Like, what other strategies did you guys use with one parent being very much involved and the other, taking a back seat?
Well, I would just follow on Stephanie's comment that also Missouri does have respite, and so I would want anyone who is in a situation like we are in, like you are in, to work at getting into the system, because there are resources that the state and or county offer that can be enormously helpful when you can have a couple hours a month or even 5 hours a month, a couple date nights. It's incredibly helpful. And as far as strategies go, I think I don't know if this is maybe a little off topic and not quite answering that question, but the thing that helps us the most is a schedule. And I think that Stephanie has used that in her work as a para support. You'd have a schedule. It could be just a little note card or something that has just the list of things that you do. First this, then this. Now, I think that I think that formula has done more to change our life in structure. We have all kinds of supports that we use. As far as the thing that's changed our lives the most for the best in working with our son is just to have things on a schedule, the routine.
Yeah.
I know in church, Stephanie, you've used the visual schedule with Macy, right?
Yeah. So, and it's also helpful in Sunday school, you know, and it's like that a lot in the younger classes, right? So with the younger kids, you just naturally put together a schedule. As they get older, it's not so natural in those classes, so they might need a schedule more. But often, you know, it's first we're gonna sing, and then we're gonna do the story, and then we're gonna do the snack. And so you might think like, well, the kid knows that, but sometimes just seeing it on a piece of paper, or seeing like little, oh, here's the song, here's the food, here's the little picture, is really helpful.
It's even helpful for kids that don't have a disability. I mean, many kids without even a diagnosis or without even characteristics that would qualify on any DSM classification, many people suffer from some anxiety, or they get bored. And so the rest of the kids benefit from the schedule as well, we found. That's helpful.
I was talking in our class about Macy, and I was like, does anybody know what that little sheet of paper that she uses is? And everybody was like, no. I'm like, well, see, she knows that it's going to be this, this, and this. And there was one kid that was like, I want a schedule too. I never know what's happening in children's church. So yeah, so it's good. It's good for all kids, actually.
I agree.
You talked a little bit about it when you were introducing yourself, but can you go into the Able Ministries role that you serve in just a little bit more? As you know, once we started talking in early 2019 last year, we had never heard of this ministry, grew up in this organization, and we had never heard of it. So we want to get that word out there. We benefit from it. Obviously, you guys benefit from it and are serving in it. So kind of just deep dive into that, if you want, with Able Ministries.
Sure. So Able Ministry, it all started when Denise Wynn wrote a book, and that book was called When God Says No, Finding the Faith to Accept God's Will. And so she wrote that book. The UPCI ladies president at the time read it and said, we have got to do something. The book was about her story of her son with autism and a seizure disorder. And so out of that, it was born. So Able Ministry is a program within Ladies Ministries. So if you go to the Ladies Ministries website, you have a little drop down, Able Ministries right there. We also have a Facebook group. So if you type Able Ministries UPCI in Facebook, you'll come upon our group. It's 2,500 people now, maybe more, maybe less.
Right.
And it's a place where we have parents, and we have people with disabilities, and we have people who are teachers, people who are paras, people who have been in special education for years and years and years, speech therapists. And it's just a place where you can go, as a Sunday school teacher, you can go and say, you know what, I've got this kid in my class, I don't know what to do. Every time something happens, I don't know. And it's really a place to get advice. It's also a place you can go for the spiritual IEP, which we did with Macy when she first started. So the spiritual...
What is this? Oh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Everett. That leads us to our next question.
The spiritual IEP is basically a form. And you sit down with the parent and the Sunday school teacher, or the parent and the disability coordinator, whoever it is in your church that handles it. And you just walk through 25 questions. What did it take us, Brittany? It took us an hour, maybe not even an hour.
About that. Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, let's just walk through, what does your kid need? And the good news is, as you guys know, you sit down once a year with a team of educators at school, and you figure out what your kid needs for support. And so as parents, like, we've already had this conversation about what our kid needs and what our kid doesn't need and what we should avoid. And so it's basically taking the information that the caregiver or the parent knows and like translating that into Sunday school. So it's 25 questions. You just answer the questions. At the end of that conversation, you will know what that kid needs for support in Sunday school. Resource. Tell them about the resource pages.
So a few years ago, something like that, Chris Anderson who edits children's level of the literature produced by Pentecostal Publishing House, Sunday school literature. He approached us, or Leanne Alexander approached us. We'd had conversations with individuals in the curriculum division of Pentecostal Publishing House about the need to have some resource pages, something that teachers, Sunday school directors, educators could use. So we've developed a course. I would say Stephanie contacted a number of writers, maybe 6 or 8 different writers. We've produced around that many, half a dozen to 10 resource pages. And those resource pages, one was on autism, one was on maybe oppositional defiant disorder. Other disabilities were featured, and different writers and their perspectives on what techniques can be used to help if you have an individual with this disability or disorder coming into your Sunday school. Those were sent to all of the teachers, so they made a copy for each Sunday school packet and sent it. So any church that was using Pentecostal Publishing House literature would receive that. And we have copies of that on the Able Ministry Facebook group. And so if anyone wants them, they're free to download. We have them all available. So we would love to produce some more, so that is a possibility in the future.
Right.
So it's like the most common disabilities. So Down syndrome, intellectual disability. What do you do if you have a kid who can't talk? Wheelchairs. And then there's a section that provides, like, if you want to know more, right? Here's some books, or here's some websites that would be helpful.
So you were talking about the spiritual IPs, the resources, the things people can find, if they're starting from scratch in a church because they have the burden for this, or if they're seeking for help and need this to happen in their church. What along with that is maybe like an ideal setup, without draining and saying, go look at all the resources, get the PPH literature. What is an ideal setup? Like, what would be an ultimate goal for a church?
My first answer would be every church of any size needs a disability ministries coordinator or director. You need someone who can advocate for a person with disability. What are we going to do? Are we going to go to the children's pastor and say, we need you to devote someone to be a para for Timothy? We're not going to do that.
That seems like a big ask.
We're the parents.
I mean?
You don't want to feel like a burden.
So we're not going to ask for that because we don't want to feel like a burden. But if we have a director in the church that you can go to, coming from the director who's on the part of the pastoral staff, part of the team, whether pastoral staff or not, but close contact with the pastoral team, that person can be an advocate for anyone who needs support.
Yeah, and they don't have to be an expert.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they don't have to be the expert. They don't have to know everything there is to know. If you have one person that's like, okay, it's your job to make sure if anybody in our church has a disability, figure out what they need, however you want to do that. If you use a spiritual IEP, if you just like use your eyes and ears, you know what I mean? Like,
right? Just to get something.
Yeah, just one person that can look out and say, okay, during worship, what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Right? During a potluck, what's happening with that person? Where are they? Do they participate in children's church? Or are they the kid that's in the nursery all the time? Are they, just take a look around and notice people with disabilities, notice what they're doing or not doing, and then figure out how you can support them.
Could be a challenge. Not every church can support. I mean, if you have a church of 50 people and you have 3 families, each with a child that needs a para support, well, you're barely able to staff the Sunday school with teachers. You might have 3 teachers and you're needing 5 teachers. You don't have any para supports. So having come from the experience of a smaller church, coming to a larger church, I'm well aware of the fact that many, especially smaller churches, have limited resources and capabilities. So creative solutions may be required, but still being able to think outside the box and doing what you can. We can't meet every need.
Right.
There are more needs than you can meet, but there's always something you can do.
I mean, we've had a baby monitor, like a baby monitor in the back room, which was helpful. You know what I mean? Like, I had to take Timothy out. We had to go somewhere. There was a baby monitor in there that we bought for $19 and just threw the receiver up front, and I was able to hear the service that way. Is that perfect? No. Is it ideal? No, but I could hear the service. You know what I mean? Like, we have...
Not at home, not,
in the parking lot.
Correct, yeah. I mean, we have people right now that take their kids to the parking lot and sit in the parking lot the entire worship service because their kids can't handle being in the building.
Or just don't come.
Can you get FaceTime? I mean, in the world of Zoom and, craziness that we're in right now, could you just have somebody FaceTime them from the car and at least be able to see it?
There is one other thing I'd like to add. As a leader, many church leaders, you feel this need. You have to have all the answers. The person asks you a question and you have to know what the Bible says or what our position or what our doctrine is. You just have to have the answer. But many times you don't have the answer. And as a church leader, just don't be afraid to say, I don't know what we can do. Let me check. Let me see what I can find out. Maybe have some meetings, or maybe post a question on the Able Ministry Facebook page and see if we can get some other ideas, because there's wonderful wisdom in a multitude of counselors. And if you ask on that Facebook page, it's a good chance that somebody has encountered something like this and has a possibility that you never would have thought of on your own.